It would have privacy-focused communications, a ZK-proof identity layer. Quite an interesting idea of having an emergency funds wallet integrated, so people could, yeah, be transferring like privacy coins. We could have some kind of fiat gateway privacy, private fiat onboarding or offboarding maybe through the app too. Or there was another interesting idea that was like, maybe we can use that ZK proof ID layer in some way to connect people to like Uber or like supermarket. What am I trying to say? Like coupons. So you can use it without actually having to use your bank account. So the kind of the codes could be on there, on that listed on the app. Yeah, so a lot of things kind of panning out there. Please check out the forum post and leave any comments or ideas. Because also the Porto activists are already working on this larger campaign, which is the domestic violence disclosure scheme in Europe. So this is a scheme where people would be able to request information about maybe it's their partners or someone in their life who the police has information on them about like a history of domestic violence, so people would be able to protect themselves better by being informed with that information. So there's already connections there. It's a Europe-wide campaign. I think like if we can build a really good spec that makes sense, and this is we're able to do this in a completely private way. And if we can use Logos Tech, amazing. Like some of the yeah, applications of this tech, I can see we would need Codex, which isn't quite ready yet, but maybe there's something we can make work in the meantime. So I'm really excited to help them progress this. And yeah, hopefully next week they are going to be coming on the space. A representative will come on the space and kind of talk a little bit more about this. But yeah, I'm gonna pause there and maybe even throw to Chair, because I know you're working with Waku and that you guys are looking for specific use cases for Waku right now. So any initial thoughts that you have there, even if it's process-wise, like how can we support this circle to spec this out further? And I don't know, maybe even turn it into something that's a bounty for Waku. Yeah, so it was just, sorry, maybe you weren't ready for me to throw to you, Chair. But yeah, there's more information about this in the forum post I've shared underneath this spaces link. So yeah, it's like we discussed this a little bit last week. The Porto Circle kind of forming around a group of activists working, supporting domestic violence victims and building a kind of super app on Waku that would have a private communications layer, privacy coins in a kind of mutual aid funded wallet, different things like that. If this is interesting for Waku in some way to get involved with. Nice. Okay, all good. I realized that I posted the two links underneath the announcement post for this space, not even this space. So yeah, it's there. Take your time, and yeah, just interested to see how we can, even if it's not working directly with Waku, like maybe Waku can support specking it out, and then we can create some bounties for it and help bring in some devs that way, or it can be something that another more technical circle is interested in building. So let's see. I love that there might be a lot of this kind of, if we're working with Railgun too, people have already thought out a lot of these different like variations that we would need to use for this app. So that's very good news, Chair. Thank you. I'm just going to move on and try to speed it up a little bit. So on October 16th, there are two spaces happening, two circles happening. The first is a special 4-hour circle that's happening in Rome with Urbi Village, which is itself a side event, 2-week pop-up city side event to ETH Rome. The first 2 hours, we're going to be running kind of a more standard logo circle. And Václav is going to be hosting that for us, and Shirley from the Nomos team. And then in the second half, there's going to be a few workshops and talks, yeah, from also Shirley and Václav. So it's going to be really fun. If you're in Rome for ETH Rome or Herbs or Village, you should definitely go check out the circle. And we are looking for someone to continue leading that circle moving forward after this one-off event. So if you're interested, just let us know or let the guys know on the day. And then also on the 16th, there's the first logo circle in Doha, which Khadija is running. And you're here, Khadija. If you want to jump up at any time and tell us more about that circle, feel free. But yeah, she's got some interesting connections with local universities and professors. It's at the Qatar Science and Technology Park, who have very nicely given us the space for free to use. So yeah, an awesome kind of partner to help run circles with. And then we also have the first Berlin Circle happening on the 17th, and Sevron is here. Sevron wrote a really good article for the Logos Press Engine you guys should check out about the case for starting a circle in Berlin, kind of the historic context. I helped him a little bit just on the Lisbon, writing a bit about Lisbon, the historical context, and how we've been working on winnable issues so far. So definitely check that out on the Press Engine. I can find the link and hopefully share it in the right place this time in the comments section to make it easier. Yeah, okay. And then on the 21st of October, this is really exciting. We have the first circle happening in Nairobi. So Ochi is going to be leading this circle. He's a friend of Logos. We met at Zanzalu. And Ochi runs Web3 Clubs, which is like a kind of developer focused community. Like, to be honest, it's a huge community. There's hundreds of people. They put students across East Africa through this training program, and they're producing a lot of developers like in the Web3 space. So they're an amazing partner. They also have their own physical location. So they're going to be kindly sharing that with us to host these circles. And let me see. Okay, Waka's also here in the community. Shout out Waka. He hit me up in DM last week saying he heard Nairobi was happening and he wanted to get involved. And I linked him up with Ochi, and they were already pals. So Waka is going to be helping out with that circle too. So super cool to see people rediscovering their friends through logo circles too. And I think that's about it. Okay, yeah, last one. Logo Circle happening in Bishkek on the 26th of October. Definitely want to mention this one because it's really exciting. It's a part of ETH Bishkek, which is the first hackathon in Kyrgyzstan. And Logos has got some bounties. Logos is sponsoring the event. We have two amazing volunteers that are going to be running this circle, like an educational session around Logos. And we're also looking for someone who can take over running that circle more permanently. So if you're happen to be based in Bishkek, or if you're going to be just attending the hackathon, definitely go to the circle and yeah, learn about logos, learn about circles, and maybe start your own when you get back to your hometown, even if you're not based there normally. No more circles. Those are all of them happening in the next few weeks.
Man, you have been knee deep Amazing stuff, Amelia. First of all, I got to say that Rome and Decca and those guys, that's an amazing place to do some work. Good people all around. And in terms of the other locations, Nairobi, etc., these are places that desperately need our help. Talking about institutional failures in places that have an abundance of potential winnable issues, those are some places, great places to start and actually to explore a lot of different areas. So yes, amazing work. One second, somebody requested up. I'm going to go ahead and bring everyone up because I'm going to let Chair, if he's got any LA updates, provide those, but it'll be just a minute. Speaking of Chair, you have like the best three-word sentences. So down to code and kill the fish. If we can do all of those things at once, we're going to be in really good shape, my friend. Hey, right? Nice fertile soil. By the way, this is why we have Chair here to support us, right? It's always important that you have a good supportive chair in your life. Okay, so yeah, brother, I'll let you go ahead and drop your updates from LA or anything else that you have, and we'll start working our way to the conversation piece. All of the above. Sweet. Oh, by the way, so we have a couple of hands up. You guys can hear me okay, right? Okay, cool. Thought for a minute I was leading away. It wasn't working. Anyway, okay. So we have Arnold up here. I'm going to let Roxana and Louis speak for a minute, but Arnold is. I'm actually going to see Arnold at Edge City pretty soon, and we're going to work together on a few little projects related to circles. I'm going to be hosting a workshop, and this is, by the way, in Argentina at Edge City, Patagonia. So we have our stuff in the works as well. Just everything seems to be happening. There's so much. It's actually hard to process and keep it all straight in our heads because it's just growing so rapidly. So excited. Arnold, if you want to make a comment. By the way, thanks for all your help and everything you're doing, friend.
Oh, no, totally fine. Thanks for having me up there. Yeah, looking forward to meeting you in Patagonia. It's, from such a short time getting involved with these Logos crew. Everyone's been so welcoming and supportive with the ideals in terms of what we're trying to apply and move forward for as a mission. It's been great. Was also there in London, meeting Roxana in real life for the first time, which was great, and getting to know her a little bit more. So yeah, everything has been so good. Really looking forward. I know Chair. I've been speaking to him quite a lot since I jumped into space last week, and he's just been so incredibly helpful in terms of pushing forward ideas and clarifying requirements in regards to things we want to be developing with regards to Waku and some of the specifications. So I'm really excited to see more of that developing come out in the next few months or whatever that is. So yeah, it's an exciting time, such a great community. And what I really enjoy about the Logos community so far is that just the support and the willingness that everyone is to go out of their way to help you. And yeah, I would encourage anyone who is sitting on the sidelines to, just put yourself forward because help will be around.
Thanks so much, Arnold. And really looking forward to reconnecting and sitting down and just having a good brain exchange. Should be amazing. And then we'll do some work. Thanks, brother. By the way, there was something I was thinking about, and then I'll let I think Louis, maybe Roxana had their hand up. But one of the things that makes Logos and Logos circles really unique is the way that we're approaching the quote unquote network state, cyber state, blockchain community space by really focusing in the grassroots efforts rather than having more of a grandiose vision or starting quote unquote a whole Balaji style network state. Instead, we focus very specifically on actual issues for the ability to rectify some really trenchant problems that these communities face, and that the power and criticality of that cannot be understated. And there's so few who have began to tackle it from this approach. And by the way, this is representative of OG cypherpunk and crypto anarchism. These guys were activists at their core, and so that idea space has become infused throughout the very marrow of our community, and that's, again, can't be understated and talked about enough. Arnold, you have your hand up, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. Just before I forget, I was listening in on the bus earlier, which is why I didn't jump on stage. But there was someone speaking with regards to how Waku could potentially be useful for, privacy preserving with regards to domestic violence cases. And I can speak a little bit to that. So I know people who work in that sector in, let's just say, a country. And in terms of the cases that they were processing, like to give people an idea of what this means. So I think a lot of people will have some preconceived ideas about what domestic violence can be, but it also comes down to surveillance and invasion of privacy. So say, for example, there have been instances where like people need to actually set up tools when they are even looking at websites to say they're like, oh, how do I get help for domestic violence? And there needs to be like certain plugins such that if the offending person comes in, they can like exit quickly to go to like a Google page or something like nondescript. So like the idea that and the problem that has been presented, it is very real, and it surfaces in so many like different ways. So technology like this is like really important. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what use cases can be imagined to help protect victims in that fashion.
Yep, that is true. Whatever kind of tech that we can leverage while also trying to maintain privacy, especially for the victims, right? The victims of domestic violence don't always want their stories to be told, at least not while they're processing various kinds of trauma. So we actually offer a great infrastructure for being able to help local communities with the tech that we have as well. So great point, Arnold. Luis, you had your hand up earlier. If you have anything you want to add regarding the circles or had a comment, stage is yours.
Yes, thank you, Tim. So hi, yeah, basically we have a lot of circle happening. It's really exciting for the Logos ecosystem. But last week we went the Logos Circle San Jose, Costa Rica, the first edition. I think was the first Logos here in Latam, I think. But the next month we will have the Logos Circle in Mexico City. So, but basically, so to be quickly with a little recap about this Logo Circle San Jose, we have around 17 participants that represent more than 50% of the registrations in Luma, and also so more attendance Costa Ricans people, but we have two Venezuelans people that was really interesting to know their perspective about what he decided to come to Costa Rica to live here, because he already have 7 years living in Costa Rica, migrating from Venezuela. But all the topics covered inside the circle, basically a little icebreaker sessions to know the audience, why are you building, what's the motivation to come to the circle, and also I moved to the philosophy, ambition, mission of Logos, because at the beginning it's complex for new people to know about Logos and understand what are Logos and the reason why we are building Logos. So a little explanation using the circle as an example. For example, related with a small community with its own governance, where the privacy is key, and also the members have the freedom to enter or exit without restrictions. That was the example to explain the Logos vision. And also we move to the network states and the local issues. That is the main point of the circle, to identify some local issues in your country or your local community. And one of the most important local issues we identified, basically, one of the members proposed, for example, the idea to build an application for political parties. For example, the political parties take decisions in the governance based on their own perspective, for example, or and not considering the perspective of the people in general, the country. So basically, create an application to eliminate personal interests or personal perspectives, because Costa Rican legislators currently vote for their perspective and interest rather than the public goods. So, interesting idea to build using the Logos stack, Waku, for example, to take decisions with the people and send these decisions to the governance. Having people to represent the town in the governance. Yeah, basically take decisions more transparency for the country. And also another local issues, but the main local issues when was this. So yeah, I think we had a really good cycle here in Costa Rica for be the first one. I'm already planning the next one for the next month, and a girl told me that she are really interested in organize the next circle. So I already talking with her to onboard her, and probably send the documentation, right, or even a meeting with Amelia for the onboarding for the circle. But yeah, really good experience last week here. Thank you.
Really, really amazing work, Luis. By the way, the Mexico City too. Man, I can't stress how much I love Mexico and how much I love Mexican culture, and doing a circle there. And I think we've probably discussed this or touched on it before, right? But being in Mexico City is amazing. And next time I'm there, I'll make sure to hit you guys up so I can come and I can assist you guys in whatever way that you need. Because I'm in Mexico quite often, especially since I spend a good chunk of time in the Americas and on this side of the world. So I'll make sure to hit you guys up. Great work and great initiative, Luis. Cool. All right. I think if you guys have any last bit of commentary that you want to add or any kind of, okay, cool. Roxana, rock and roll.
I just wanted to do those two shout outs. One is for Luis for being the first intern to organize the spaces. And I know it's very challenging, and Logos is a big org and it's very confusing. So really well done. I've been very impressed, and I'm kind of excited to see what the other two interns come up with in Doha and Ilorin in Africa. And then the second shout out is to Arnold. I was deeply touched when you came to me after the circle and said you wanted to take a few Logos magazines to Edge City, and I didn't expect it, and it was such a great contribution from your side. So I'm very grateful. I've shipped some magazines, some Logo zines to Arnold, and he'll bring a bit of the story of open source everything to Edge City to Patagonia. So thank you so much.
Totally welcome. Yeah, it's just been such a great introduction to the community and the messaging. So yeah, if you can find Stellan or I at Edge City Patagonia, be sure to ask us for one of those scenes. They're incredible. And yeah, I think if we're closing out, I just want to sort of like make one note. So I was speaking to I was speaking to someone, and just to sort of like understand the gravity of why this network infrastructure is so important. When we live in certain regimes and we have foreign governments who, I guess, surveil our right to assemble, and then that then has downstream implications on our ability to travel between borders because of the political implications that may have on us physically. It really hits home how important having technological infrastructure like this is important, such that we can just move between borders freely without fear of being imprisoned for our right to express. So really great work, everyone. And yeah, thank you, Roxana, and everyone for being so welcoming.
Well said, Arnold. And don't think you're going to find any disagreement in that sentiment here. You're absolutely right. All right, guys. I think right now is a good time too. We can move on to a more discussion-oriented section, and we kind of kept it open-ended, and I specifically wanted to field discussion topics from the community, and a few different ideas came up. So what I want to do now is let you guys, if anybody wants to come up and they have a topic they want to discuss that is top of mind, please, right now is a great time for you to raise your hand and come on up. If not, we can, I have a few ideas of topics, and I'm sure everyone else on the panel currently does as well. But we have to remember the overarching mission of course is to disintermediate third parties that represent failed institutions and organizations, and figure out how we can create, this is my perspective, of course, create more self-sufficiency and efficiency in our communities, both on the local level and eventually the global level. This is what our friend Michel Bauwens has referred to as a global kind of solution. So I'll let any of you guys kick it off. Arnold, you have your hand up, so you're more than welcome to chat and kick it off as well, my friend.
Oh, sorry, I think that was a mistake, but I do have to bail for a meeting. But I'm gonna say love you and leave you. I'm sorry, guys.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate you being here, and see you soon. Cool. So if any of you guys have anything that's burning in your mind or in your head, any ideas that you want to play with, we're more than welcome to discuss them. And if not, I have a few points that I can certainly bring up. Let's see, we have a request. Sebastian, bringing up Sebastian. In the meantime, guys, right now is probably a good time to do a reset of the room. Remember that the whole goal of circles is to solve winnable issues, to create change in local communities. And this is where the real change in the world actually starts. And the whole goal, of course, is to not only continue to process our ethos of decentralization, the cypherpunk modus operandi, and to generate more freedom. Technology is a big piece of this, but also community is a big part of it. You can't really have one without the other. You need the community to spread, adopt, and develop the technology as well. Welcome to the stage, Sebastian. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you. Yeah, this is just as what I've been thinking about, especially like you posted on the Discord yesterday. I've been working on getting through Farewell to Westphalia, and also at the same time, I've been reading another book that I'm just about done with called The Weirdest People in the World: How the West Became Psychologically Peculiar and Particularly Prosperous. And so in that book, it's really interesting actually to be reading them at the same time. In that book, The Weirdest People in the World, a lot of it is talking about, it's a bit hard to explain smoothly, but a lot of how institutions set you up for success, and how different forms of coordination and beliefs and sort of like psychological slants have an effect on our institutions, and how those institutions have an effect on our psychology. And so I don't know, it's kind of like maybe a meta thought, and it's sort of something that I always like to think about in general. So maybe I might sound like I'm repeating myself often, but this is sort of things that I like to think about. Is in the one of the chapters that I was just reading, they were talking about new institutions and new psychologies, and in this section they talk quite a bit about the importance of competition within a group and and with outsiders, right? And they talk about like the commitment to the groups as you have these sort of competition, right? So if there are there's lots of like interesting examples that like war is a big extreme example that they show that creates stronger bonds within groups, right? So when you have extreme levels of competition with other people, that causes you to become closer with your people, right? And when I think about these things, like I would say one, what you guys are doing with circles, it's almost touching on that already, like your domestic abuse sort of things. There's all these things where people are having some sort of, again, the language is funny, but competition or problem, right? And then having this like increasing ties with a community or with a group that helped you solve those problems. And so I guess one of the just general things I was thinking of and that I sort of wanted to bring up and potentially discuss is this idea of how to encourage competition, both like within the group or without the group or outside of the group, and just kind of about how healthy I think that is, even if it's let's say soft incentives like, oh, this person won, which again, a lot of these things I think that Logos is already working on. But so two big things. One, like inner competition within the groups, maybe within the circles, or like, oh, it would be cool to see like somebody get some sort of recognition or reward for making one of the largest, circles or accomplishing that goal or something first. But I just think it's important. It's like, again, it's sort of like a maybe a meta discussion about like, I understand, and I think many people here understand what the goal of the things are, but maybe what I'm talking about is like the mechanics or the internal situation in which would more effectively get the group to become closer and to sort of like that competition keeps it healthy. It keeps people motivated. It keeps people creative. And yeah, so just kind of wanted to sort of spur that discussion.
Chair?
Yeah, and I think that like some sort of I don't know what I don't know like again I try to think of the mechanics, right? Like I think that there are soft and hard incentives, right? Like I like what you just said about LA doing, you know, getting the greatest apps, right? But also you know, there's soft and hard sort of incentives and or structured or non-structured incentives, right? And I think that those are important to think about. There's a quote. I don't know. I saw it around a while ago, but it's something like you owe it to your philosophy to figure out how to win, right? And that's what is again, like you already sort of said, like the philosophy is there, the idea is there, but another thing that I keep thinking about as it relates to this as well is identity. Like in order to have competition, right, you need to sort of identify in such a way, right? Like, oh, I identify myself as you know, the best quarterback or whatever, right? And if you don't have some sort of ways to have a unique identifier, both as a person and as a cohesive group, that's harder. Like it's a lot harder to say, like, to be proud of your position as I am the guy who gets the ball to the other side. If I'm just like, oh, I'm some abstract thing, it's a lot harder. And so like when I think of logos and I think of operators, I think that, and also like I was reflecting on this before this discussion, like I loved the operator games, the exit game. I think it was an awesome idea. It got people engaged. It's something that I could actively talk with my friends about, like, oh, did you see this or whatever, right? There's something that's actually like there's identity that begins to be built there. Like, oh, my friends struggle with the game. Oh, I struggle with the game. Oh, people are trying to figure out how to cheat on the game, which I think is cool. And a type of hype is like a type of competition is people are trying to, that's sort of the hacker ethos, I think. But these things are like embroiled with each other, this identity and competition and inner group, outer group sort of thing, which I think often people can see that as bad, or some people try to avoid competition. But like again, this quote thing, you know, you owe it to your philosophy to figure out how to win. I don't think these things can be passive. I think that whether you want to see competition as other people, you know, working on privacy, which I don't know if that's necessarily true, but a little bit, that might be on the same team, or people who are trying to abuse their power and go against your rights, I guess. Like you are competing against those people, and I would say that the people that do that, they make a lot of money. They have a wild amount of incentives that they can use to make sure that they have a highly competitive environment that keeps their organization alive and vibrant. And if a community that is bootstrapping themselves to try to compete with something like that, they need to have again a strong identity and a strong way to encourage acting on the philosophy, or competing for the outcomes that they want. Yeah, I think, yeah, I think that there are, I mean, it's a process, right? That there are things that might sound good up front, and then they're like, oh wow, this is not very helpful. But I do think that these sort of things need to be implemented for you. Again, the opponents are extremely well funded, extremely well known, extremely like it is an extreme competition, and that is like, and that is the broader group. That's not even like the like sort of internal other people in like the crypto space or whatever you want to call it, right? That I'm just talking about the real, in quotes, others. But also, oh, and I wanted to say this earlier, like, also about like redundancy, like you know, when I hear about like because they're like sort of privacy oriented or like rights protection oriented, a lot of the things that like the identifiable problems and solutions, it to me sounds roughly like they're all very similar. And because they're all roughly very similar, like this is where the cooperation, because it's another huge part of that. I've been trying to say this in like these sort of communities for a long time, is that the advantages of open source communities, I feel like are really not even being used, right? And so if that is one of the advantages you have against the proprietary, you know, closed end surveillance systems, is that you have a group of people that are aligned philosophically and that are willing to share, right? And so if you know, if the Lisbon Circle and the LA Circle both have this sort of like need for this thing, well, it would be great for them to compete, but also sharing resources about how they're getting to. Again, I'm just basically brainstorming as I listen to you guys and as I think about what it means to be a new institution, what it means to have new forms of ideologies, and like what this means to us and how do we integrate that into our lives. I'm just trying to just push this out there and say, yes, more competition, but also, is there a lot of redundancy among these different sort of projects, and you need to be efficient. And so if there's 7 circles hitting on the same thing, well, maybe they should have sharing of information and then competitions for proof of concept or something like that.
Yeah, you make some really good points, Sebastian, and I start turning my mind over as I think about these issues. This is interesting because lately, as I've been thinking about competition, I think about it in terms of game theory, right? So one of the problems is, if you, I first of all, I want to say that I agree with you. I think some amount of competition is healthy, but I think trying to like maintain or titrate that level of competition so that you don't end up with these sort of zero-sum games that infest some of the institutions that actually lead to institutional failures. And let me just to give you an example of how this has happened. So I think a lot of people know I used to work at Walmart. I was an assistant store manager. I worked at Walmart for some 10 years, and it has one of the most toxic cultures that I've ever been a part of. And one of the reasons for that is because they actively cultivate zero-sum games, and it kind of pits employee against employee. Now, I want to be very clear. There's a lot of things they obviously do good. The rampant competition has really led to the growth of that particular company, but they also have one of the highest turnover rates in the corporate world. People are constantly leaving. And one of the tragedies that I saw of the whole thing is when you're internally competing so heavily with your fellow workers, it can create an environment where a person is trying to they're trying to get the next job position or job role or the next merit raise or whatever it is. Uh, so they're optimizing for their own well-being at the expense of everyone else. And what that does create is an environment where people don't want to be part of your club anymore. And this is the reason that they have such an extravagant turnover rate at Walmart. And this happens largely throughout the corporate world, and leads to these institutional failures and also these second and third order ramifications or externalities. So we have to be very careful with competition. Now let me give an example of another kind of modality or model. So we're going to have Ben Collier, who wrote a book about Tor, come on actually on Thursday on The Space. And one of the reasons that Tor was able to grow so quickly, right? They had probably a little less internal conflict because it was decentralized, but really their focus point was advocacy, and they had a guiding vision or mission. So the competition then gets externalized, where everybody can focus in a very, very narrow range on what the actual goals are, rather than feeling like they have to compete with everyone else. And I think this is part of sort of the defining characteristic or factor of organizations that are more flattened. Again, this is just my take on it. I do think at the end of the day, though, there's always going to be natural competitive, because there's sometimes competitive people in organizations, and they want outlets to be able to compete. And especially if it's set up or there's a mechanism for it, as you use the term mechanics or mechanism, I think that's important. I just think we have to play that super smart if we really want to engineer a kind of competitiveness within an organization, because that can also turn sour very quickly. There's a lot to think about, though. You bring up good points.
Yeah, no, just real quick. Yeah, no, I agree with that completely, because when you do, and that's also why I tried to like hint at these sort of like soft and hard incentives. Like, I think if you believe in a movement, right, that some people can do it, this language, I don't like the language very much, but some people can do it more like altruistically. Like, it feels good to know that you helped a lot of people, right? And sometimes a little bit of recognition is good. But if you are too, if it's like, oh, well, you know, there's $1 million prize and I'm trying to sabotage chair because I think LA's got it in the bag, that's not good. That's a very painful, bad situation. But yeah, no, I don't think there's like easy answers. It's like an evolutionary process. But I just wanted to just kind of, that's how I tend to think about things. And when I think about this community and I want it to succeed, I just think that some types of competition help keep it vibrant, and it helps you like competition is good, like exercise. When my buddies are killing it, that makes me go, oh man, I need to step it up. And that's no negative feelings about my friends. It's me being like, man, they're doing so good for themselves and I want to do good for myself. And having buddies that are being in the gym is nothing but encouragement for me, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I just, those are what I was thinking about.
Yeah, go ahead, Chair. Yeah, I mean, arguably, there's also a good point to what both you guys are saying. This is the one good thing about competition, especially if we look at it in the sort of in the capitalist vein, where companies in startups they compete for capital on the market. So the idea there, of course, is the idea that's the best, or that makes the most sense, or that has the most devoted founders is the one that's going to win at the end of the day. Now, in reality, is that how it actually works out all the time? Not really, because there's always different types of influences and externalities at play as well. But ultimately, that sort of market ethos, which is a competitive ethos, is what gave rise to a lot of the successful companies. But that still doesn't mean, though, that everything is going to work out hunky-dory and be perfectly fine at the end of the day if those institutions either corrupt or fail. But I do think trying to find the balance, right, between the competitiveness and the end result, or the end scenario that we are trying to achieve. And that is definitely easier said than done. But Sebastian, I don't think you're going to find very many naysayers here in terms of you mentioning the operators, the trivia, and the different games. That was what I would call healthy competition for sure, where it also inspired people to do certain things. So maybe we have a discussion about that, and certainly revisit certain ideas as an organization. So I'm really glad that you came up and brought that topic up. By the way, I want to field other kind of comments and thoughts and questions here. I love your topic, Sebastian. I see let's see who's in there. I see Parallel Citizen down there. I think if you want to, no pressure, by the way. If you, I'll call people out. If you want to come up, you can. But if not, don't worry about it. But if anybody wants to come up and engage in this chat, please. This is a community space. By the way, it's 1:06 p.m. Central Time. We'll probably go for about another 25 minutes or so. We have a good group of people in the audience, and the conversation right now is what I would call top tier. So thanks again, guys. And Sebastian, great work. Whoever wants to continue the conversation, go ahead, and I'll look for people who want to join. Man, we could go on a whole on a whole tour of this issue with Yarvin and technocracy. Man, got me. You said a trigger word, right? When you mentioned his name, it was funny because I think when you mentioned him, I had only heard about, because Chair, you and I had private conversations in the past about Yarvin, and I hadn't really looked into him until you sent me his information. And then, of course, makes sense. This is why all these like sort of techno-fascist folks follow Yarvin so closely, because he literally wants to see a more techno-fascist quote unquote utopia with a techno ruler at the top. You know, it's funny because most of these folks started out as you sort of dyed in the wool libertarian or kind of mainstream libertarian or anarcho-capitalist, and they completely changed their focus, or they moved into this different kind of realm of thought. And that tends to happen actually a lot with some folks in this movement, because I think they see this. So I'm also going in completely different direction, but that's all right. We'll open the conversation up completely. What ends up happening? Go ahead. You're going to say something. No, I'm just thinking that what ends up happening is these folks who believe so deeply in the libertarian ethos, sometimes they lose patience, or they lose their train of focus, and they want something that maybe has more sort of efficacy, or something they can control more. So I think they tend to drift toward these like paleo conservative positions or techno fascist positions. And I feel like that's largely what happened to Yarvin, and now he's what we refer to, right, as a neo-reactionary. And yeah, his work, I can't stomach it too much personally. Let's see, we have a request. Go ahead. Indeed, sir. No, no, no. No. You're welcome to talk about it. Sometimes I accidentally click because I'm trying to mute and unmute myself, and I accidentally click the mute space button. So no, you're good.
I think it's really important. Like, I don't think, like, I think I disagree with quite a bit of what you guys are saying, but I think it's maybe from the angle as to how I see what is coming from him. But I'll just briefly say, I think that people like Yarvin, who I think is, this language is funny, but forward thinking, or like looking into the future and potential things that might be coming down the pike, right? Somebody like him that's bringing up modes of being which you strongly disagree with. To me, it doesn't at all. It doesn't at all mean that that person should be ignored. I think that is for me, that's the wrong way to approach it. I'm actually like super interested in a lot of what Yarvin says, and I think like, I don't agree with techno-fascism, but I definitely think that how he approaches the situation and the ways that he explains why these things might be coming are very, very important to understand. If you think that that is somebody who has beliefs that oppose yours, I think that you should pay attention to why they think what they think and why they think those things are coming. And so, like, if there's anything that I would take home from Curtis is to say, I don't think Curtis is a dumb person. I think he's a very intelligent guy. And I think that the outcomes that he sees as possible, many people neglect as impossible. And I would say they are not impossible, and he does a good job of articulating why they may be coming.
Can I ask
Yeah.
a question?
Hey, yeah, one second. We have we have Lance up here. We also have Parallel up here. I think the conversation is going to get really juicy. So I'm going to go ahead and let Lance, who came up first, speak, and then we can do our round robin here. Go ahead, Lance. Welcome to the stage.
Hey, Sterling, am I a known quantity? I don't remember you. So Curtis Yarvin, I haven't done a deep dive. Of course, I've heard of him. What's he, the modern day monarchy guy?
Yeah, that's
Correct.
probably roughly correct.
Correct.
Yeah. And now is he aligned with the people that wanted to buy up parts of Northern California and then create a techno feudal state right there? Is he related to that?
If you're talking about like the Mark Andreessen stuff, I don't know if he is like closely tied with them, but
Peter Thiel, your friendly neighborhood billionaire whack job.
I would say loosely associated, but I don't think he's like a part of that direct cohort.
Yeah. I'll just throw this out there, which is, I don't know if it's related or not. Oh, first of all, I don't know if it's related. David Brooks, you know who David Brooks is, right? The kind of right, center right, not hardcore right, columnist for the New York Times. Right?
Go on.
Oh, because, of course you guys know, I can tell already, you all know who he is. He's calling for a revolution, folks. He says it's time for a mass movement in America. I mean, if you lose David Brooks when it comes to establishment, everything will be fine type people, boy, you really lost the plot. But anyway, I'll just throw this out about Curtis Yarvin. Somebody wise man, I forget who it was, said, whether it's a dictatorship, authoritarian, whether it's a monarchy, whether it's a pure democracy or a democratic republic, eventually you can't govern without the consent of the governed. Now, obviously, you're not going to have a Haiti slave rebellion very often. The more authoritarian and controlled, the harder it is. But if you don't believe that even powerful kings and queens can be knocked off their perch, just talk to Louis XIV and Marie Antoinette. I mean, even compared to other, speaking of monarchies, even compared to other European, everybody had their day in the sun. Portugal with the slave trade, Amsterdam with their finances, and every major country in Europe had their day in the sun of being the big bad dog. But outside maybe the British Empire, but nothing was reached the height of affluence and opulence and power as the French kings. And look what happened to them. So I don't know. I guess I'm not thrilled with some of these people's ideologies, but I think that they get a little bit too big for their britches. I'm a populist, and I'm not completely hopeful. We could be going down the drain, but I have faith that the people are going to rise up. And I also think that in the current situation, I'll land it here with Trump and all this. Look, let's face it, Cop City in Atlanta. Okay, I know this might sound unrelated, but as far as this worldwide power struggle that's going on, Curtis Yarvin being a part of it, Cop City, okay, Atlanta's not only a blue city, it is a black city, okay? In other words, a lot of black mayors are in the big cities, but I'm talking about the city council and and that's a wonderful thing. Atlanta's a thriving, one of the most wonderful success stories going, so, more power. But Cop City, which is this fascist cop training center, that's Democrat. That's all Democrats. And in fact, it's black Democrats, if you want to. Okay. So the idea that, Trump's such an authoritarian, dictatorial. Yeah. Well, it's both parties have been gearing up because they decided late stage capitalism. There's not enough assets left. They're going to have to keep going for the poor and the poor and the poor. They can't squeeze any more out of the middle class. They don't want to tax each other. And so they know they can't give us stuff. They just can't. I mean, even if they wanted to, when you listen to people talking about the macroeconomic level, where we just see the day-to-day stuff, they see the big picture. And they can't do it anymore. So they made a decision. We're going to have to either start giving people stuff, and putting together remending the social contract, or we're just going to have to fight them in the streets and just do an authoritarian crackdown. And that's what both parties have decided. But Trump Thank goodness. It was somebody as inept. He had nothing but incompetence around him with Bondi and Patel and Homan and Hegseth. So I'm glad that if it was going to come to a head, it was going to happen in a weird silver lining way. I'm glad it happened under such an incompetent, over the top regime, so that I think that the people will rise up because it'll be so obvious.
Yeah, Lance, I gotta. So I have a few things, and I'm gonna let Parallel speak. I just want to address what you're saying. So, you know, I don't know if this is the first time I've seen you here. I don't know how familiar with Logos and our ecosystem you are, but one of the things that we have started to think about, instead of revolution per se, we don't even see that as necessary. And being engaged in sort of the political system has a lot of negative psychological fallout. It has a lot of negative potential outcomes. But one of the things that we're really trumpeting, and that really gets us up and going every morning, is this notion of exit ideology, where if the system is broken and we don't see that it's working for us, instead of trying to fix that system or to hope for or to push a rebellion which potentially has violent bloodshed, instead we exit and we leave those systems. We exit spiritually, emotionally, and physically. So one of the things that we're activating, right? We have this activation of creating these logo circles all around the world where we don't have to deal with this. And this is just a personal perspective, this part is, but the amount of energy and glucose that goes into sort of quote unquote politicking on a national level is such a waste of energy and just a waste of your humanness. So one of my goals have been is, what can we do to actually get out or remove ourselves from the system? So this is part of what Logos is working on, and this is what the cyber state, the network state community at large is working on. I do want to give you a chance to respond, but I do recommend looking into Logos and looking into our work if you haven't already. Maybe you'll actually like it. And I'm not saying this to disagree with your perspective. I'm just offering that there is this like alternative positioning.
I've been saying that exact thing literally since 1982. Right? I took an on the road trip, and I met some interesting people, and it wasn't inspired by them. I came up with this idea. And here's what I said to the yippies, yippies. They were still kind of alive and well. They were funded out of New York, but they had a strong contingent in San Francisco. So I got to meet some of these radicals, and they were just hippies doing their thing and smoking pot and dropping acid. I mean, the yippie convention and all that. But here's what I said then. Oh my God. So I'm at the Yippie convention, tripped out of my gourd, and there's this guy with a beard, a baseball cap, looking real blue collar. And I said at one point, he said, how do we bring Exxon to their knees? And when he said that, I said, wow, that doesn't sound very creative. That sounds out of like some kind of playbook, right? Like to say something that kind of cliched, right? And then I said to him what are you going to do with them? You going to kill them? You going to jail them all? They're going to rise up. These are hardcore capitalists, boy. They believe, and they have a lot of faith in themselves. So you can put them all in jail, but they're going to get out eventually. You're going to kill them all. So my attitude was, why are you going to try to fight Exxon? I've literally been saying this since 1982. I says, all the energy it takes, you got to break down that system, whether it's politically or a revolution. You've got to fight them physically or non-violently, like Gandhi, but you've got to fight that system. Then you got to get rid of it. Then you've got to have a vacuum, so you're going to have to fight off the right wingers or whoever is going to come from the other side. It's going to try to fill the vacuum. So you're going to have an immediate second battle on your hand. Then you're going to have to rebuild the entire system after that. I said, why do the first part? Just create an alternative system like worker co-ops and NFPCs, 501. Basically exactly what you're saying. Just create a separate, entity. Alongside it, and then that one will fade away just from disuse and from attrition. So I mean, we're on the same page there.
Absolutely, man. Yep, absolutely. I mean, I want to respond to you, but I want to give space to the other speakers right now who came up. Parallel came up, and I want him to add his thoughts.
Oh, the heck with the other speakers. Let's just have our own private conversation, and to hell with them. No, I'm just kidding.
Right on, man. Hit me up later, and we can continue to have a conversation. But I hope you come back and engage with our community as well. And we'll reach out to me and we'll have a discussion. Parallel, welcome to the stage, my man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great discussions, guys. But just on the topic of Yarman and all this, I would say there's this quote, absolute power absolutely corrupts. And in that vein of thinking, we have to understand that whether it's monarchy or any other fucking authoritarian bullshit, the way I see Logos, the way I see all these like grassroots projects is we're building encryption tools, we're bringing autonomy back to the self, and we're reducing the cost of invasion or power abuse or things like that, or straight up like actual war. The more we encrypt things, the more we make it harder to break into things, the easier it is to kind of have a sort of digital but physical fortress to prevent corruption top down.
Yep, I think you hit the nail on the head. We have to have alternative systems. We have to have extraterritoriality in order to build the kind of systems that we want to see and want to live in. This idea, I think, there's a lot of people who have considered it from different perspectives. You have the panarchists, the panarchist theorists who are still really obscure but had some similar ideas about creating different kinds of governance models all around the world, or allowing them to proliferate, and then people could simply opt into any kind of governance mechanism that they want to, no matter where they live. Then, of course, Timothy May very early on wrote Libertaria in Cyberspace, where he envisioned sort of the same thing, except digitally connected strictly to the internet. So what we're seeing right now in the world that we live in is the final culmination of these ideas coming together, and now we're constructing this social setup and the attendant technologies that empower it. So, and this is one of the beautiful things too, Parallel, as I think about it. This isn't something that is a fairy tale or something that we're all just idealists dreaming of. Sure, there's a speck or there's a hint of idealism in all of us who are futurists or who work in tech and who are trying to create change. But right now, we're actually building it, not only on a technological level, you see, that's what a lot, that's crypto, that's blockchain, generally speaking, but on a fundamental level, in the very substrate of society, we are altering communities and culture. This all, of course, started with internet mediated communication tech, but the cat's out of the bag. Pandora's box is open. There's no way that you can stop this particular movement. And I think we're in a beautiful space, man. So, by the way, I'm glad you came up to speak after I mentioned you in the chat. And I really look forward to speaking more with you, because I think you have a lot of really, really solid ideas, my friend. So thank you.
When it comes back around to me, I'd love to talk about this whole, because you guys are all techies. So I'll say something later that it'll really piss you all off, probably.
Yeah, no worries. Actually, I think we're going to go ahead and round down the space. We've been going an hour and a half, but Lance, hit me up and then also come next time to the space, and we'll give you some airtime and you can chat and share your ideas. Happy to talk about it. But yeah, we have to.
Did you want me to give you a thumbnail now? Not now.
If you have a short.
Well, basically it's this. Tech, going back to the Industrial Revolution, was not created to make life easier. Now, life became easier. Look at all the appliances and electricity and all the wonderful things that came out of the Industrial Revolution, but that was secondary. It filtered down to consumers. The idea was to squeeze more work out of the worker. And the education system was created mandatory to teach people how to run these machines. It was almost like today, where all of a sudden all these new technologies and gears and steam and engines, they broke down a lot. You weren't just a factory worker doing a widget on a putting a bolt on a thing. Some people were, but it was the high tech of the day. So you needed engineers on the factory floor to fix these machines. Literally, I mean, it was complicated, and we needed to train people how to build and fix the machine. It wasn't about let's have an enlightened population like the founders wanted. It was, how can we educate people to be nice little wage slaves?
Yeah, thanks for holding down the fort, chairs. For some reason, I have a really bad habit of doing caffeinated, fueled misclicks, and then I misclick off and go into a whole different program, and then I drop, and then I'm stuck in the I'm stuck in the purgatory of of X and can't do anything, right? So now I finally came back. Anyway, okay, glad to be back. Thanks for holding it down. I think right now is a great time to button up this space, guys. We had an amazing conversation, and this was an amazing Circles update as well. I was really glad Lance came up and gave his perspective as well. I really want, and I think everyone here wants this to be a multi-perspectival space. One of the things that we champion is freedom of speech, right? Because the antithesis of freedom of speech and the ability to talk openly is, of course, censorship. So allowing people to come up and chat, and less, of course, this is an interesting thing. If a person comes up here and just shills their stuff, of course, that doesn't really add value to the conversation. So though in that case, we're probably going to ask you to try to stay on topic at very least.
I need to do one entreaty, just very, very, 20 seconds. You're winding it down. I have something called, and I haven't done any events, but I have venues already. I'm in Central New York. It's called a Free Speech Initiative. Originally, there was a group, a Hillel group, which is very, very pro-Zion, Zionist group, and a Muslim group that was very, very pro-Palestinian. Before October 7th, they were going to have a debate. And then October 7th happened. They got canceled. This was going to be at Syracuse University, which a few years ago had the ignominious distinction of being the worst free speech campus. Is anyone in Central New York or in the New York area, or hit me up on my DMs if you're interested, because I really want to get this going and start having. It's not going to be one-sided. It will, and this is something, again, I've been trying to do all my adult life, is get people from the right and the left, or the rich and the poor, or black and the white, the opposite sides, or a panel of people that are on opposite, various points of view to promote free speech. So anybody in Central New York, please hit me up, and otherwise I'll talk about it the next time I see you guys.
Yeah, that's amazing. We definitely aren't gonna push back against your free speech operation there, my friend Lance. So, yep, thank you. Thanks again, guys. I think what we're going to do is keep pushing this mission forward. We want to keep our Logo Circles initiative and our grassroots initiatives moving forward. We want to continue to build the cypherpunk technology that expands our influence around the world, and that also allows more and more people to adopt, build, work on the attendant technologies that we've all constructed. And ultimately, we want to see and be and live in a better world, a place that we can be proud of for our children and our children's children. And I think that's why we're all here, right? We're here because we're creating communities and joining communities that ultimately share our values and have an understanding of ideas around freedom and peace and human dignity and decency. So thank you all for being here. We're going to have a special guest, but just a couple of notes. We're going to have a special guest, Ben Collier, who wrote a book on tour and is a dyed-in-the-wool cypherpunk. He's going to come on Thursday, and we're going to chat with him on the space then. And of course, we'll continue to do this community circle space every Tuesdays with updates and conversations just like this. So thank you all for joining. And the very last thing I'm going to mention is don't forget to go to the logos.co website, click on the book link, and to check out, it may even be in the Megatron, check out Farewell to Westphalia. Sebastian earlier said he's working through the book. Highly recommended read, and certainly paints a very optimistic portrait of the future, and says that this is the most important thing. It's not a black pill. It says that there is hope for a better future. We can solve this with technology, with culture building, and highly recommend checking that out. So thank you all again for your time, love, and energy. Let's do this again next time.